Hi, it's Iris. Welcome to the second episode of Buddha Bites. And today we're on my balcony. And I like to grow herbs and spices on my balcony garden. I am not a green thumb by any means, but I'm working on it. Now, I'm standing here in front of the basil, and I started to notice when the weather was beginning to turn cold that I was beginning to lose a little bit of it. I don't want to lose a lot because I love basil and there's so much that you can do with it. So let's take this into the kitchen and cook with it. Let's go. So there are all the best leaves that we just picked, the basil leaves. Pesto is a rather easy thing to make. We got a lot of basil here. This is extremely versatile. I'm going to show you a couple of things that we can do with this basil, and particularly two things that we can do with pesto. So I'm not going to include measurements, just handfuls of stuff. You're going to see it and you can adapt it for yourself. I'm going to take this pesto and put it in my food processor. Now, there's no shame in my game. This food processor is about 20 years old. It used to be white. It is not anymore. It still works. I keep waiting for it to conk out on me. It will not conk out on me. So if it won't conk out on me, I'm still using it. So here is all the basil. And the next thing I'm going to include is some garlic. Now, some recipes will tell you 1 clove of garlic. I tend to believe that 1 clove of garlic means 2 or 3. Now, this is the way that you want to deal with your garlic. There's not that much to do right now. You want to make sure that the garlic that you choose is very firm. It's not wrinkled up in any way. It's very tight to the base. You can snap this off, and then you have the individual cloves. Now, what I do is I snip the base off of the cloves of garlic. That makes it easier to peel. So here are the debottomed cloves of garlic. I'm going to get rid of this. And then all you have to do, now this one sort of did its own thing, but you take your chef's knife, you smack it. That's it. It releases. I'll show it one more time. You just take the clove, smash down. It will release itself from the skin. I call it the paper. So you can then take these garlic cloves and put them directly into the food processor. You don't have to do anything else to them. The food processor will do the work. Now, pesto is usually made with pine nuts. Pine nuts are expensive. You can make a pesto with any sort of a nut. I'm going to choose walnuts. And no, I'm not going to measure them again. Just going to take some whole nuts, which, by the way, have been in my freezer. You want to get nuts that are as intact as you possibly can. You don't want to get already chopped nuts in a bag, because chopped nuts expose the surface area of the nut, which is the oils, and the oils can go rancid. So if you get halves and pieces that are as intact as you can find them, it's less likely that you will find a rancid nut. And you do not want to bite into a rancid nut. So these go into the food processor. Again, I'm not measuring them. In they go. Now, an important part of pesto is the cheese. In a perfect world, you will use Parmigiano Reggiano. Parmigiano Reggiano is specific to a particular region of Italy, and it is not cheap. I happen to find this at my food co-op, and I splurged a little bit because it's for you. This particular piece of cheese, and I've also snacked on this a little bit. This little bit of cheese costs close to $12. So, you want to use as much of it as you can. There is this little rind here. You're not going to put this in the pesto, but you will save it. Please save it, because you can use this when you make spaghetti sauce. and it will enrich your spaghetti sauce. So this is not going to get thrown away. This stays. Now, I love the consistency of Parmigiano Reggiano. Now, the way that I cut it is not fancy. Again, your food processor is going to do most of the work. But in a case like this, you want to get some of the work done ahead of time so that the motor doesn't work all that hard. And I'm going to chop up some of this, and I'm going to leave some of this to snack on later. So this goes with the rind. So this is going to go in. I am a cheese person, so this is not all the cheese that I'm going to use. I am going to show you the alternative. This cheese cost me $6. Bel Gioioso. Nothing wrong with it, but you will see that it's not called Parmigiano Reggiano. It's called Parmesan. And even though it's an aged cheese, it's not going to be as complex as the Parmigiano Reggiano. But I'm not trying to get you to break the bank every time we cook together. So I want to use a little bit of this Parmesan. Now look at the difference between Parmigiano Reggiano and this Parmesan. It's a bit of a different consistency. I'm more likely to snack on this and cook with this. So let's cut up a little bit of this. As you're learning how to make pesto, this is a wonderful way to start. Again, you don't have to break the bank every time. You're going to put in a little bit of salt. Now, Parmesan cheese has plenty of salt, so you want to go light. You can go a little bit heavier with your black pepper. And so we're going to get my old Cuisinart that I sometimes have to zhuzh a little bit because it got a little broken over time. I'm going to start to pulse it. Ooh, I'm smelling some of this pepper. And let's let it go for a little while. I'm going to stop it here just to show you what it looks like. You see how it's all broken up? It almost looks like pesto sauce now. The walnuts have a little bit of a ways to go. Oh my gosh, I smell the garlic. This is where we add the oil. And we're going to add it. We're going to eyeball it like we have eyeballed everything else. So I'm going to take this off. Now, they say you're supposed to use extra virgin olive oil. I have to say, I'm not that crazy about extra virgin olive oil. It's just me. It's just my palate. It's more olivey tasting, I guess, and it sometimes tends to taste off to me. But I bought this for something else, and again, I'm trying to show you what they say you should do when you make pesto. So I'm going to use this, but it is more expensive. Now this one I bought store brand. I'm not trying to be all that fancy with that. And this one is store brand also. If you don't want to do extra virgin, if you're like me, you can do one that is medium in flavor or mild in flavor. And again, this is the store brand. So I'm going to use up a decent amount of what I already have because I already opened this. I'm going to turn this on, and I will gradually add this to the food processor until it begins to look more like a sauce. I think this needs a little bit more. This is a good time to stop and taste this. Folks, please taste your food. You don't want to get so far in your process only to discover by the time that it hits the table that it doesn't taste the way you want it to taste. So I'm going to taste this a little bit and see what it needs. Seems pretty good. I think I do want a sort of a looser consistency though. So not going to add any more flavor. It's got plenty. And I'm glad I stopped with that salt because it didn't need much more. Let's add a little bit more oil. Ah, that's nice. And I'd say that's about it. Now, some people like a little bit more of a rustic consistency to it. I kind of like this. I'm not going to use the spoon that I had in my mouth. This is kind of nice. This is nice because we're going to be using it as a sauce. And also as something else that I'm going to tell you about in a second. So, let's take this pesto out of the food processor very carefully. Oh, I'm going to use my Halloween spatula. I'm a little partial to this because I have 4 cat nieces and nephews, and a couple of them look like this fella. So, it's for the season, and then it's for Buster and Tig and Scarlet and Phoebe. My nieces and nephews. They're loaded with personality. So here we have our freshly made pesto. Now this is what we're going to do with it. We are about to make pasta with pesto sauce. So I'm going to take a little break. We're going to clear the decks, and then we're going to come back with the ingredients and make our nice capellini with pesto sauce and chicken. Okay, so we have our fresh pesto sauce, our basil pesto, and we're going to make some pasta with it. So I took some chicken breast. I had bought it in bulk, and I froze it in individual portions. Just took it out of my freezer, let it thaw, chopped it up, sprinkled it with a little bit of salt and pepper, sauteed it. So this is going to be, I'm going to warm it up a little bit because it was in the refrigerator. So I have my skillet. It already was heated up with a little bit of this olive oil that I'm getting low on now. So this is already cooked. So we're just going to let this warm up in the pan for a little bit. And in the meantime, we're going to take some of this pesto that we just made and warm it up, because this is going to be the base of a pasta dish. How much? I don't know. We're going to figure it out as we go. So my heat is on sort of a medium low. I'm going to save a little bit of this for the next thing we're going to do. And we're just going to let it heat up a little bit. Take my little spatula, mix it together a taste. I'm really one for agitating food at all times, because I think sometimes, people think, you put food in a pan and you just start to stir. Why do you stir? Why are you stirring? You're stirring to get all of the food that you're making in contact with the heat. You're not just stirring for your health. You want it to have equal time at the base of the heat source. It may sound, nerdy, it may sound scientific, but there's a reason why we do things in the kitchen. So we're just going to agitate this a little bit on this medium-low heat. Might turn it up a tad bit. And we're about to get on to the next thing, because we are multitasking in the kitchen right now. So the other thing that we're going to make right now is a flatbread with this pesto and a couple of things that I found at the supermarket. So I have all this set up and ready to go. I found some fresh mozzarella. Now, the difference between the fresh mozzarella and the stuff that you get shredded, I'm not saying don't ever use the shredded, but I'd like to use this fresh one today because it has a nice creamy consistency. You see this? And it's going to melt beautifully. So this is called Galbani. It just happened to be the cheapest one that I found. So don't feel wedded to this particular one. I cut it sort of in cubes, and we're going to use this in a little bit. And I also found when I was at my food co-op yesterday, they had some roasted peppers. Now, roasting peppers is a bit of a project, and it doesn't work so well when you have an electric stove like I do, because the best way to roast a pepper really is to put it on a direct burner. So every little once in a while, it's kind of nice to take advantage of the fact that other people will do this for you. It's a roasted red pepper. There's still some char on it, which is great because that adds to the flavor. The seeds were taken out, and all I had to do was to take one of these babies and slice it up, which is what I have done here. Don't worry about the char. You want the char. The char makes a really nice flavor. So, simple. While we're waiting for everything to heat up, we're going to take these flatbreads. Really, all this is naan bread, N-A-A-N bread. It has sort of the smooth side. It has sort of the busy side. And I'm going to make 2 of these, because if one is good, 2 is even better. And I'm going to take some of this olive oil, and I will just give it a little brushing around the perimeter, because essentially what we're making is a pizza. And this will help the edges to brown up a little bit, because this is not going to be in the oven all that long. So we need all the help we can get getting this into a ready state. So let's take some of this pesto, put it in the center. Put it in the center. I don't know how much. This looks to me like about a 1/4 cup. I'm going to spread this thing out. And while we're doing that, I'm going to take a look at what's happening over here with this pasta. This can come down a little bit. And look at all we're doing. Just spread out this pesto. I might be a little bit more generous. And I am one to use the best tools. I have wonderful tools in this kitchen. The best tools that I have, my own hands. So I do not feel uncomfortable about getting your hands in your food. This is your food. If you're not comfortable touching your food, then maybe you should reconsider what it is that you're eating. So let's take the cheese. We'll just sprinkle a little cheese on it. Get back here. There we go. And a little bit on this one. This is going to go into the oven for only about 2 minutes at 400 degrees. That you do have to be specific about. And we'll take some of these roasted peppers. Now, of course, the Italian flag is these colors. So, this is not only a delicious lunch or dinner, but it is also an homage to where it all came from. Let's put one over here. So, let's get these in the oven, which has already been preheated to 400 degrees. And we'll keep them in for a couple minutes. Literally a couple, like 2 to 3. And we will get back to our pasta dish. So, I have had pasta water boiling. Ah, yeah, that's pasta sauce is looking good. So, this is now at a rolling boil. Now, I am going to use capellini. Capellini is angel hair pasta. Now, the one that I chose is kind of different because they do them in nests rather than those long sticks. I just thought it was a cute idea. And this particular brand, we're going to be trying for the first time. It is called Dilalo, and they have different shapes of pasta. I chose capellini simply because capellini takes the quickest time to cook. It takes like 1.5 to 2 minutes to cook. So when you're looking for time savers, take them where you can. So each one of these nests is a half of a portion. So I'm going to make a few. So that's 1 portion, 2 portions, and 3 portions. So when I boiled this water, I boiled it without the salt. I will salt it now. At no point am I putting oil in my pasta water. That is a no-no. You don't want to over season, but pasta water, you want it to taste kind of like seawater. That's what you want out of pasta water. This is the only opportunity that you get to put flavor specifically into the pasta. Now, again, this is going to go for 1.5 to 2 minutes. So, while we wait for those, we're going to show you how to actually cut basil. So let's clear these decks. There is a technique that's called chiffonade. It sounds fancy. I guess some people might think it's fancy. It might be fancy. But all it is turning this basil into ribbons. Now, this is a little small for me to make a chiffonade out of, but I reserved some basil in another way that you might find it. If you can't find a basil plant to take advantage of, these little clamshells of basil are perfectly fine. When you buy them, though, you want to be sure that you're using them right away. They don't go in the refrigerator. Do not do that to these. You will open the refrigerator the next day and see that they have died. And that is a very sad thing, especially because basil is so beautiful. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some beautiful leaves, and the best ones I can find, I don't need that many. I'm going to stack them one on top of the other. And we're going to be talking about knife skills a little bit down the line in this series, but just wanted to give you a little bit of a tip. So we're going to take these perfectly dry but perfectly fresh basil leaves. We're going to hold them almost in like a, dare I say, a cigarette. And we're going to take our knife. I'm going to tell you about these. A safe knife is the sharpest knife, but we're going to talk about that later. We're going to leave the tip of the knife on the surface. We're going to rock the knife back and forth, keeping our supporting hand out of the way of the blade. You want to curl your hand under. I'm basically making a claw. That way, even as I get to the end of the chiffonade, my hands are safe. Now, that's not to say that I don't cut myself from time to time. I don't want to show you the one that I did last week. Anyway, so look at this. This is your chiffonade. You have these beautiful ribbons, and you don't want to do it too soon because basil will tend to brown a little bit. So that is your chiffonade, and we'll be using that in just a little bit. I'm going to slightly demote it off to the side, and we will check on these little nests of pasta that are beginning to break up a little bit. See? Whoops! They're beginning to come apart a little bit. Again, do not oil your pasta. If you oil your pasta, then any flavor that you try to put on them will just roll off. So this has been in for about, maybe about a minute and a half. And what we're going to do is to move it to our sauce, which has been waiting patiently and just warming. Now don't worry about getting water. You don't want to get a lot of water into this pasta, but you do. In fact, a little bit of water might get the sauce to the consistency that you might like. Look at that. And I do not care about making a mess in the kitchen. I'll come back and clean it later. Kitchens are made to be used. Kitchens are meant to get a little messy. So no problem there. So that's just about all of the nest. There's a little bit down in there, but I'm not going to be too persnickety about that. At this point, I'm going to come back in and mix all of this together. Again, I tend not to leave the pan still. I tend to agitate from the standpoint of the pan and my arm. So, and yeah, I'm going to be a little fancy here. Yeah, I can toss this a little bit. Can I toss this? Yeah, I can toss it a little bit. Okay. And to me, this looks like it might need a little bit more pesto, which is fine. Some of it is a little clumped up in here with the chicken. But again, we can fix this later. Let's go in with a ladle and just give it a little bit more pesto. Now it's going on hot pasta. Yeah. And then once we plate it, we can make it even prettier. Ultimately, what we want to do is to have equal portions that have an even amount of the chicken and the pesto. And we're going to garnish this with a little bit of tomato, because tomato and basil are play cousins. They always hang out together. So this is done. So let's turn this off, take a look at our flatbreads, which also should be done by now. Oh my gosh. This is looking nice. You can get a little bit more heat on them if you like, but I like this. But we have one more thing to do, and I can just take the opportunity to neaten up a little bit before we plate. Give that a little bit more time in the oven, because you never really can tell. Every oven is going to be different. You know, the directions may say 3 minutes. In your oven, it might be 5 minutes. It's all good. So let's take a little break. Let this continue to marry. Let the flatbread get a little bit more color on it, and I'll see you in a moment. It's time. First of all, let's look at these flatbreads. Oh my gosh, look at that, if I do say so myself. So let's set this down here and let it hang out, and we will plate this pasta dish. So we will turn this off because that's an active burner. No. Okay, let's get on this pasta. So this is just a soup bowl. I love this set. This set came from Sur La Table. It's actually a soup and sandwich set, to where you set your bowl of soup and then you have the square for your sandwich. I love this thing. I couldn't resist it. I only bought 2, but I couldn't resist it. So let's use this for the pasta. This is the way I'm going to plate it. This is a restaurant trick to make a nice little portion of pasta. So you take your pasta. Now be careful, because this is a non-stick pan and I am going against the rules a little bit and using a metal utensil in it. So I'm doing my best to not touch the bottom with this. So let's fluff up this pasta a little bit. You put it inside a scoop, a ladle. Now, this might not be sufficient for the people I'm feeding, but at least it'll give you kind of an idea, especially if this were a longer pasta. So you take this and you set your pasta in the bowl that way. And you'll want to come behind. I'm gonna stop with this ladle of this foolishness. Well, maybe I can do it gently. And we will take some of the pieces of chicken. I might need a spoon for this. I think this will be fine. We'll throw a little bit more capellini into the equation. So you have a decent amount of chicken, decent amount of pasta. Come on, get off that. There we go. And I'll lock this up. And we will garnish this with some tomato again. Basil and tomato are play cousins. They love each other. I think I'm going to take a little bit of the chiffonade of basil and put it on too. Make a nice color out of that. Purdy, purdy, purdy. So let's set this down. Just going to get a little rinse on my hand. I tend to keep one dry hand, one wet hand. One dry hand, one wet hand. Makes it a little bit easier. And of course I do have this apron. Aprons are meant to get messed up. And let's grab one of these flatbreads. And I'm going to shift it to my little cutting area right over here. Pray for me. It didn't slip. Now I don't have one of those pasta wheels, or if I do, I can't remember where I put it. So let's do one clean cut this way, turn it around, another clean cut this way, and we have 4 portions. But again, we made 2, which is a beautiful thing. So let's take this and take at least 1 portion. I might end up having to give the people 2. That's fine too. And let's set that there. What the heck? Why don't we do another one? These are pretty. So we have sort of mini pizzas and a little pasta there. It might not be considered the most balanced of meals, but it is delicious, and it's a wonderful way to show you 2 great ways to use the basil that you have cultivated wherever you can cultivate it. So let's sit down and eat, but before we do, there's one little surprise I have left.
All right, I'm rolling.
You're rolling? Woo! The surprise, we drank him. Alrighty, so let's do, I don't even know the name of it because I'm making it up. But I love Stateside vodka. It is from my city of Philadelphia, and it is delicious. So that is our base. And you know me, I am not going to tell you how much to use, but it is the base, so it's the one that we pour the most of. So a little bit, it's a vodka-based drink. So Stateside, and again, lemon. We're going to do lemon 2 different ways. We're going to do lemon juice, and we're also going to do limoncello. Watch this space. I think maybe about a half a lemon is sufficient. Ooh, nice. Okay, that goes bye-bye. We're going to do limoncello, which is an Italian lemon liqueur for a little bit of sweetness and a boost to that lemon. Nice. And Italicus. This is really neat. I can't get it everywhere. It is a bergamot liqueur. And it boosts, I find that it boosts the taste of the basil that is gonna go in. So a little splash. And I had forgotten, but that's okay, to muddle up some basil. That's okay, because what we can do is to bruise that stuff. And I have this chiffonade. Yes. Smack it like it owes you money. Put that in. So I guess we don't need the muddler. That's cool. And I'm going to put this in a shaker. Shake well. Now obviously this is more than one drink. Abundanza. Abundance. You want to shake at least until you see the outside getting cold, and of course you feel it on your hand. My hand is getting mighty cold. And I have 2 glasses because I am not drinking alone. That is depressing. Let's strain this in. Ooh, yum. And yes, I did open Prosecco. So we're going to top it off with some Prosecco. And, you know, you could use club soda. I tried it with club soda. It was okay. I think this will be better. Ooh, yum. Oh my gosh. And every good drink needs a garnish, so I still have some of this lemon from before, which I'll use my chef's knife. And I'm gonna, maybe I'll make this so y'all can see it better. I'm gonna slice it down the center, slice it in half. Then you have your lemon wedges. I'll slice this in half. So that's part of your garnish. And just to remind you of what it is that you're drinking, which is a lemon basil cocktail, a little bit of lemon basil garnish. Yay! So here's our cocktail. Let's eat. Wow, so we've done a whole lot of stuff with basil today. So we have, I'm gonna move this out of the way for a moment. We have our capellini and chicken with basil sauce. And I think what I'm gonna do is to take my nice little purple microplane. Yes, I found a purple microplane. Do not judge me, it's what I do. We're gonna put a nice snowfall of garnish on the pasta, yay. And we have our flatbread, which, what the heck? If you're feeling adventurous, maybe take some pepperoncini, red pepper flakes, and who cares? That's cool. Just spice it up a little bit. Or you could also take, this is a balsamic glaze that you can get in the supermarket. It is available where you can find your balsamic vinegar. Oh, isn't that nice? Look at that. And you can actually even put this on some of that Parmigiano Reggiano that you saved for yourself. So we have ourselves a nice meal and an even nicer cocktail. So this is Iris Fairfax for Buddha Bites. Remember, you are the Buddha, so cook like you're cooking for the Buddha. That's you.